Welcome, everyone. My name is Howie. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Crowded. Thanks again for coming tonight. I was trying to think of a joke about our beer being late, but there is no good joke for beer being late, so I apologize. That's my only thing I can do. So hope everyone grabbed a drink and some pizza. This is awesome space. Great view. How many people here? This is your first Crowded meetup? Raise your hand. Majority of the room. Awesome. We hope to see you back again. We've been doing this as a monthly series since December. And this started out in our office, and we crammed 100 people into our office. And we've been moving around to some different spaces. We were recently in UBS. Last month, we were in Microsoft. So it's been great to kind of take this on the road. And my joke is always it's a little crowded in here, which is why we named the company that. So one of the things that we would love for you to do is make sure on the way out tonight is everyone here has a Crowded profile, right? Raise your hand, you got a Crowded profile? Awesome. If you don't, please make sure you sign up for one. Actually, I don't know how you got into the building without one, but it's okay, you're in here. We want to make sure that you guys are expressing interest in applying for jobs. One of the key ways to get attention from our hiring managers and recruiters in Crowded is by expressing interest in the job. So when you log in, go to the Jobs tab and search through it. What we do see, and we can see analytics on this, is a lot of times people will click the top 5 or 10 jobs that are listed in date order. That's not the right way to do it. Make sure you're looking through it, pay attention. We probably about 300 jobs today plus in the system, and really apply and focus on the jobs that match your skill set. So again, thanks everyone for coming. Sorry that the drinks were late, and I wanted to introduce Joe Rubin, my partner and co-founder in Crowded. Thanks again, everyone.
So, yeah, you can clap. That's all right. It's okay. Thank you. It's actually closer to 400 jobs now, and they're all tech jobs in the New York area, so right on target. So definitely check those jobs out. Does this mic sound okay? Is it a little echoey? Am I too loud? Is it good? Good? All right. All right, so we're going to have a great panel today. I got actually several questions in the audience just walking around before people were asking me. So I'm going to take those questions, I'm going to ask it to the folks up here, and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of some of these issues that we are experiencing as job seekers. But first, I'd like to go straight down the line, just have everybody introduce themselves, talk about yourself, talk about your company, what you do.
Okay, I'm Carolyn Kramer. I'm from Prestige Staffing. We're based out of Atlanta, but our New York, sorry.
Go for it.
But our New York office has been open for about 2 years now, and we work with a lot of small to, what?
Do me a favor, just actually slide that mic up a little bit closer.
Okay. Is that better?
I don't know.
Yeah? Okay. We work with a lot of small to mid-sized startups is usually our bread and butter. Anything within the software development lifecycle, so engineers, QAs, BAs, the whole deal. Yeah.
Cool. I'm Skylar Yost. I work for Quartet Health. It's a mental health technology company backed by Google Ventures and a few others. We are actually right down the street. We're 2.5 years old, and I've run recruiting for the company since the start, which has been a challenging but very fun endeavor. Met a lot of people. We're up to 140 people now, and continuing to grow.
Actually, could we turn down the speakers just a little bit? It's a lot of feedback. It's tough to... All right.
Hi, I'm Karen Weeks. I'm the VP of People at a company called Order Groove. We do subscriptions for retails or brands. So for example, if you go to PetSmart.com, you go to buy dog food and you want to get that dog food delivered every month, it's our technology that's powering that behind the scenes, even though it looks like PetSmart. I oversee recruiting as well as all the other sort of HR, fun, people, culture things. I've been there about a year, and we are actively growing. We just got our Series C funding a few months ago, so we're building out our product and tech teams as well as our other teams as well.
Nice.
My name is Griffin Weston. I'm a technical recruiter at DigitalOcean. We're based in Soho, but about just over 50% of the company is remote, so we're pretty distributed. Cloud infrastructure provider, you can think of it in the same way that we build all the same things that Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure are building, but we abstract away a lot of the complexity. We make it very simple. I support the growth of engineering, product management, product design, marketing, and community, so all over the company. To date, this year we've hired 97 people, probably hire another 90 through the end of the year, so growing tremendously.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. 90 people. So, quick question for my audience here. How many people have been on an interview and then never heard back? Gone to an interview and then never heard back. So why is that? Why do people not hear back? Like, what is the process there for when you guys meet someone in the office and then, like, what's supposed to happen next? Anybody can jump in on this one. Go for it.
What's supposed to happen, but obviously doesn't always, is transparency and just level setting expectations on the process. I view it as a failure of myself or my team when we don't do that. We try to do that as little as possible, but obviously we're humans and mistakes happen. But we have it built into our process where within 24 hours of you coming in, we'll give you a call. We won't email, and we'll give you feedback, good and the bad. And even if we don't have a decision at that point in time, we'll at least give you a ring and say, here's kind of where we're at. So I just think if somebody's investing time with our company, we owe them transparency and strong communication. Doesn't always happen, but I don't know, maybe we need like a better ATS that just like bugs us every time.
I wasn't blaming you, by the way. I didn't want to take this part.
I would also add too, we are human, and so if we have missed it or dropped the ball somehow, like reach back out to us. Say, haven't heard from you in a while, what's going on? That's the best way to, hopefully get that recruiter to go, oh shoot, I can't believe I, missed that. And so we'll hopefully be able to connect to you that way.
Yeah,
I'll piggyback on both those things. One, it's a lack of transparency. There's also some element of human error. Like you talk about, you support all of recruiting, you support all of people. We're overwhelmed. Like there's so many of you, and look at us. So, like there is some human error, and I just forget sometimes. But there's also the fact that rejections suck. Like I hate rejecting people. It's my least favorite part of the job. And so I care about feedback being developmentally oriented. So it takes me a little more time. But it just sucks. Like you're ruining somebody's day, and so it's like I have a lot of empathy and sympathy, so it just sucks.
All right, so that's a good point. I mean, we're human, right? You're doing your best, right? So how can people who are looking for jobs help that? You mentioned follow up. Maybe don't just wait for me. Maybe you should call. So like, what would be a good way to do this? What would be a good way to follow up and gently remind you that you're excited about the potential of working there?
For me, it's a simple nudge. It's an email ping. It's not being pushy necessarily. It's like I want somebody to also have an understanding of what's going on in my day. That we've got a lot of things going on as well, and a lot of priorities that we're juggling. So, if somebody just quickly reminds me, then I will absolutely give them the time. I would say that it's probably like subconscious if somebody's rude and it's like, super angry at me that I haven't gotten back, like I'll probably be, probably won't be as likely.
So type in all caps.
Yeah. All caps. Okay. A lot of exclamation points,
all right.
Emojis, all that.
And if you're working with a staffing agency, don't be afraid to call the recruiter, because that's kind of our job. We're particularly guilty of not getting back to people. It's the reputation. So go ahead and give us a call. Say what happened.
Another thing you can do just on the front end, if you do have an interview with somebody, ask them what the process is. Ask them for a timeline so that you can set the expectations of when you might expect something in return.
Cool. What would be a good way to realize, like, what's the next step? So maybe I didn't hear back. I'm bugging you a little bit. Should I say, hey, let me know what's going on? Is there another interview? Is there always another interview? Like, what's the standard process of going down the line? I was speaking to a lady in here who said she was on like interview number 3, and then it kind of just like went silent. So like what's the standard process for how many interviews they should expect at each company or a staffing agency? Like what's the typical process here?
Yeah, for us, we usually do a phone screen, either with myself or if I'm working with an agency, have them do just sort of yes, they're a normal human being and, they're engaged in the process and they actually do want, this job versus the 20 others that they've, we're not just one of 100. Or even if you are, you faked it well enough to let us not feel that way. And then it's usually a hiring manager phone screen, so you can learn a lot more about the job and start to meet the person that you're going to be working for. Then we normally do some sort of coding assessment, whether that's literally a coding test or maybe it's a design project or something to kind of better you said you know how to do this, let's actually actually see a little bit of it in action. Then we bring you in for a team interview. So that could be anywhere from 3 to 4, maybe 5 people. Really, it will be peers, it will be other managers or like a tech lead or a PM that maybe you'd be working with. And then finally, we'll do a final round with the CTO. And so that's 4 steps, I guess, 4.5 with the coding test.
Okay.
Ours is actually quite similar. 4 steps also, recruiter screen, hiring manager screen, usually a coding test after that. And then the only place where it really deviates is we build in a values and culture interview where we basically have 4 company values. We have set questions to make sure that someone is a good fit with our values. And the final step is often it's with our VP of engineering, but it could be with the hiring manager. And we also make sure to build in like a lunch where the person can just interact with the team, and it's a two-way street. Like they've got to like our team, and the team's got to like them and enjoy spending time with them. I think to you kind of mentioned this in your in the question. I think the way to kind of understand that is like clarify up front when you're on that screen with the recruiter for the first time. Say, what's the process look like? How many steps can I expect? How many weeks does this typically take? Those are all questions that I'm fine answering. I think any recruiter's fine to clarify the process and set expectations so that they don't encounter any pain or miscommunication down the road.
And do you get asked those questions often?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, one of the most common questions I get is, what's the process? When I have somebody apply to a job, we send out an auto response saying, this is what's happening. Like, these are the people that are reviewing your profile. They're actual people, they're busy, but they're reviewing it. We'll get back to you if there's some mutual interest. And if there's not interest, it's not because you're not great, it's just there's not a right fit right now. And so when there is somebody that's interesting to me, or my hiring manager, I'll reach out and say, hey, I'm curious about your background, what you're interested in, and I'll answer any questions you have. And so when I get on that call with them, I set up what the call's gonna be like, and I let them know I will tell them the interview process. Because I want them to focus on questions that are more related to the team, the role, or the company, and less about the process, because I'm going to cover that. And at DigitalOcean, it varies based on function, but I'll stick to engineering. It's a recruiter screen. It's a 45-minute hiring manager screen. Most of ours are Google Hangouts. I give you the option, Hangout or call. Then there's a coding challenge, and that's open-ended, so there's no timeline on it. There's no timeline once you start it. You have lives, you're busy, work it into your schedule. Once you return it to us, we'll review it within 24 hours and let you know if you want to move forward. The coding challenge, use whatever language you want. Doesn't matter to us. We just want to see how you code in your thought process. If we like what we see, 4 45-minute hangouts with the team where you'll go over that code in one of them, and that's it. We're going to meet within 48 hours, and we'll know if we want to make an offer.
Cool. Now, is it a similar process for a staffing firm?
Well, we're actually adding our process into our clients' processes, so that can make it a little more complicated sometimes. On the bright side, we do address all those things up front, so like especially most of the time you're working and we know you have a rough schedule, and when we address those things, we'll try to find out maybe if there's 2 face-to-faces with that client, if we can try to get them into one, if you really just can't take off that many days. It's a little more back and forth. We try to make it so that we can make it easier for our candidates.
How many clients do you guys represent?
In Atlanta, I don't know because it's the headquarters, but in New York, I'd say about 50 or so.
Okay, so would they do the interview process with you first, like several rounds of interviews, and then kind of whichever company you send, then they start that process again? Is that how that would typically work, or do they skip any of that?
We're doing the initial screening, and then we're saying like, hey, this is what's going on with this person, they're good to go, and then we're guiding them through that interview process with the client from there.
All right. So on the follow-up, just to kind of get back to that, because I always feel like a lot of things fail in the follow-up, right? A lot of deals, a lot of things don't happen because we weren't sure what was going to happen next. So skipping the whole all caps and emojis, if I were to write you an actual letter, like how long after the interview should I write this letter to you? How often should I annoy you? Like, is there a point between not annoying too much and like restraining order? Like, where's that sweet spot right in the middle?
I mean, it's rare that if you send me an email or 2 that I just won't respond, right? I get a lot of email traffic, but I don't get that much. And I don't just blatantly ignore people. So if somebody emails me, a few days after they come in and then they don't hear back from me by the end of the week, like another ping is sufficient, and I guarantee I'll get back to them at that point.
I let candidates know, like at the end of my screen, give me up to 24 hours to respond to you. I'm usually faster, but give me 24 hours. I'm an inbox zero type person, so I will see your email. I also have a lot of filters set up to catch candidates, or scorecards, or feedback, or just like invites to recruiter screens, things like that. So I see your emails. I will get back to you. The best thing you can do for me is, hey, friendly check-in, just curious where things stand.
And I'm an inbox 50,000 person, by the way. No exaggeration.
It's OCD over here. It's for my pleasure.
All right, so let's talk about the actual interview. I want to spend a little bit of time on that because a lot of people are setting up interviews, going on interviews. Let's give some advice to the folks here about what they should say, what they should bring, what they should do. How do you like this interview? Like the best people that you see coming through your door, what kind of skills do they have? What kind of things do they say? What kind of things do they do during that interview process?
Yeah, one thing we really look for is passion about what we're doing. And so one thing that's really important to us is authenticity and passion. And so it doesn't matter if it's e-commerce or you want to work with retailers or you want to be part of creating a category because we don't really have any competitors right now. Whatever the thing is that's getting you passionate about coming to Order Groove, we want to hear about that. You can go to our website and spew back what the website says. I want to hear why you're excited about possibly joining us. And that ties directly to our values, which you were mentioning earlier, around authenticity and passion and wanting to be part of a startup and a scaling company where things aren't always easy and it's going to be tricky at times and we're learning as we go. Those are all characteristics of things that we're looking for, so we want to hear about that.
My teams, they want people that want to work with them, so I can have people come through the process and be all thumbs up, and at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, we like him, but does he want to work with us? So show some interest, do some research, maybe use the product if you can, if there's an app or a website. Play around with it. Do some research on the core values. Another thing that my teams love is don't tell us answers that we want to hear because you think we want to hear it, so don't BS us. If you don't know something, that's totally fine. You don't have to know everything. A lot of the interviews are gauging what you know, not how much you know. So if you don't know something, say, you know what, I don't know it. Or if you stumble in a question, don't let that ruin your interview. Come back to it if you thought of it later on in the process. It's totally fine.
That's pretty interesting. So, people tend to, you're in there, you feel like you're on the hot seat, you mess up one thing and then it derails the rest of the conversation. So, do you see people, get back on track? Should they feel like if they screw up one question that, it's over, or how should people handle that?
I actually like it when someone makes a mistake in some way or another and then they recover, because that's going to be everyday life. You're not perfect. You're not interviewing every day. You can't study for everything. You're going to fall. You're going to trip. You're going to learn something new. How do you recover? How do you learn from it? Do you have the humility to say, oh, that was not good. Can I give that again? I'd much rather see that than be fake and try to read something from a textbook.
I totally agree. I think the metadata in an interview is really interesting. You can tell a lot about somebody by how they get recruited. It's amazing how many times I've seen a yellow flag in the recruiting process that ends up surfacing when the person's already in the company. For us, one of the big things is it's passion for our mission. We're a mental health company. 1 in 5 Americans has a mental health condition. Almost everybody, I would imagine, in this room knows somebody that has had a mental health condition. No, doesn't have it themselves, but knows somebody, right? It's just incredibly prevalent in our country and doesn't get talked about enough. And so people that come in and are just really fired up about solving a problem that's impacting people's lives, that's really important to us. And I think the way that we can tell is, they've read articles on us, they ask really good questions, they've clearly done their research. It's pretty evident, and we definitely look for people that want to be here.
It's actually, so that's a good question. What if I'm just an amazing developer, an amazing worker, but I don't have that passion? Which way do you go? Do you go with the person who's not going to crank out the code as fast, but loves the company, loves the industry, or someone who's amazing, but really just doesn't care all that much?
It's a good question. We definitely had both, and both are totally fine. It's not like a prerequisite, to join our company that you have a family member that has a mental health condition. You might be really passionate about solving meaningful problems in a high-growth environment. You might be really passionate about our tech stack. I think there's a lot of things that make people really successful at our company, and we don't want to be so narrow-minded that they have to have interface with this problem. But yeah, I would say that a lot of our more successful people, even ones that aren't technically as skilled, just have the drive that gets them out of bed every morning, where they're like, hey, I'm solving a real issue, and it's amazing how much that will drive you.
I find too often too that candidates are actually really excited about the company, but then afterwards, after the interview, just because they were nervous or they were shy, the client's like, do they even really want to be here? So I'd much rather you just tell the client hey, I'm kind of nervous, because I'm excited about it, than brush it off and not really seem too engaged.
Or just be honest, be like, I really don't want to be here.
Don't waste your time.
Interviewing is an awkward thing. It's not something you do all the time, and hopefully not all the time. And you just you just have to be aware that hey, tell yourself, hey, it's totally normal. It's totally fine to be nervous, because being nervous is good. That means you care, right? So totally fine to be nervous. And for people who are less extroverted, more introverted, that's diversity that you do want on your team. I want the quiet person who's thinking things through. Half my team, I'm on one of the people teams at DigitalOcean, team of 20, and half of us are introverted, half of us are extroverted. And so we have to learn how to communicate with each other, and their opinions are just as valid and important as the extroverted person who's willing to speak up. So, and as a recruiter, I have to advocate for those things. If my team is saying something stupid because, hey, this person is too quiet, that's totally fine. That's not a reason to reject somebody. So we're moving forward. So we have to be the advocates too.
All right, so on the negative side, what do you see where people are just not necessarily, maybe they don't have the skill set, but what have people done on an interview that's really this is definitely not going to be a good fit? I'd love to hear just things maybe to avoid, pitfalls, things maybe people say or people do, or something that they shouldn't do moving forward on any other interviews.
Curse.
Okay. Fucking A, don't ever curse.
You can do that with us, it's fine. Being late to interviews, I would say. If you've got a great reason, obviously, we're humans and it happens, but a lot of people show up with no explanation, and that peeves us because we're busy too. I think sometimes people just don't, they're looking at every Series B tech company out there and they barely know anything about us, and that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I think the other thing is almost the opposite of being introverted. Sometimes when you're nervous, you can talk a lot. And for those of you who don't know, in an interview, there's this 80-20 rule where we want the candidate to be talking 80% of the time, but it needs to be focused talking, not talking all around something, and sort of recognizing the social cues of if the interviewer is trying to kind of bring you back or circle back to something. So it's probably nerves, but just something to be aware of.
Yeah, I had a pre-brief meeting. We do pre-brief, so whenever a candidate's coming on site, I have a meeting with the team that's interviewing them, so that they know what we're looking for in this person. We know what area of the business we kind of have scoped out that they'd be working on, but it's also an opportunity for the interviewers to know, hey, you're identifying or looking for these two things. And so it came up hey, what do I do when a candidate's kind of blowing through everything I'm saying? Because they have to evaluate you, and if you don't give them any chance, then you're probably gonna get a no because we couldn't evaluate you. So don't just speak. The interviewers have a mission. They need to get something out of it, and so listen. Don't listen to respond, listen to hear and understand. If that makes sense.
I don't understand.
You weren't listening.
I was listening, but not understanding. No, so basically, you guys have a set of questions that you need to have answered. You want people to chat it up a little bit, but make sure they stay on point, make sure they actually answer those questions and give you the information that you guys need, right? And I think do your homework is a good one, right? What company am I at again? I forget where I'm interviewing. Is probably not something you want to hear, right?
Oh, okay. Another one. Don't say a ton of negative things about your previous companies or people in general. That's a huge red flag. It's cool to be transparent. People leave companies for valid reasons all the time, but there's a fine line, and don't cross it.
Also, I think like give credit where credit's due. I think people go and do an interview and feel like they've got to sell themselves. And one of the red flags for us is if it's just I did this, I did this, I did this. Like almost everything you do in the workplace is a team effort. Like you should talk about your team and the way that you guys were able to work together to accomplish something meaningful. And if we just hear a bunch of I's for 30 minutes, like that will typically rub me the wrong way.
I posted something on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and we get a ton of resumes, a ton of cover letters, a ton of messages on LinkedIn. And if you're looking at that cover letter and the first word of every paragraph is I, so it's clear I's, it's a line of them, it's like you're only thinking about yourself. How are you really gonna provide value if you're only thinking about yourself? So respond to a business's needs, find out what they're looking for, and try and identify a solution or say, hey, I saw you're looking for this because of this. Just don't talk about yourself all the time. Like, don't make it about you all the time.
But I want to show off how awesome I am, right? I mean, is there that fine line of like, our team built? Do you want to hear that? I mean, does it show that maybe I was the weakest link of the team, maybe, but the team did great stuff, and that's why I no longer work there? Like, how do you balance that?
There's a lot, right? There's so many things that go into interview, but I ask two questions of almost all my people is, what makes you good at X? Are you a product manager? What do you feel is your strength as a product manager? And then what is an area of development for you? Like, where are you looking to get better? You should be humble enough to identify that you're not perfect. Like, you're looking for something. And that first question, what are you good at? I want to hear that you're good at something. I want to hear the confidence you have that you are good at something, that you know what you're doing.
There's a line. I wouldn't say it's a fine line, though. I think there's like a lot of middle ground to play in. As long as you aren't only talking about yourself, you'll probably be good. Like, find the balance.
I also tend to coach our interviewers around, if it's too much I, say, well, who did you work with to get that accomplished? Because that goes to the team aspect. Or if I'm hearing only we, I'll go, well, what was your part in that? Because then because sometimes people use we because they weren't really a part of it and they just want to kind of like ride the coattails of that. So those are two ways that I can help drive whatever direction I need.
It's talking about it as a contribution. It just changes it as opposed to just like, this is my skill, or yeah, we did that.
All right, cool. So now I want to throw out one question. I know we have a mixture of folks in the audience here, and several of them are junior developers. Like the people have just graduated maybe a coding academy or college, and they're just getting their first job, and there's not a lot of history to talk about. So maybe they didn't have any developer jobs. Maybe they had other jobs in the past. Do you want to hear stuff that's completely outside of the industry that they're now going into? Like what should a very first interviewer, a job seeker for the first time, what should they be focusing on?
I think anything that is relevant. So sometimes part of our interviews are behavioral questions around tell me a time when, and it could be tell me about a time that you had to work together with a team to accomplish a goal. Maybe you've never worked before, but maybe your dorm room, your like hall in your dorm painted a mural or something. That's a team project. So kind of be prepared to think about how can I apply what I have done, internships, school, life, volunteering, so that to use that to sort of fill what would be normally like the work gaps.
Yeah, I think it's how do you define relevant, right? I think thinking outside the box and coming up with examples, even if you don't have a ton of work experience, that shows creativity, resourcefulness, and I want to get to know you as a person as well. Like I want to hear about you and what really drives you and motivates you, and so I wouldn't be afraid to like let that passion kind of shine through.
Yeah, I want to know that you've identified something yourself that you want to do. So yes, I want a job, but what do I want a job doing? So let me hear your passion. Let me hear you're interested. I can already tell that you may not have a job. You may have just graduated. I know that going in. I'm aware of that. So what are you interested in? That is something that I can build on, and I can coach my team and say, hey, this is what she's really interested in. Let's focus on that.
Or also, what have you kind of done on your own? So nowadays, with GitHub and all these different places that you can just put your own work up there, that's a great asset. It shows your passion, and it shows that you're interested in what you're doing. So just give me a shot, and I'll do it for you.
That's actually a good thing. I want to just shout out a few things like that. What else should they have ready? So here's my GitHub. What else should they have when they walk in that you think would be, not just junior developers, any developers, really beneficial to the interview?
Clubs, affiliations, anything that they've been involved in, for sure.
different side projects. If they're working on an app or they're a designer, I want to see the portfolio. I want to see stuff that they're doing outside of work hours that is shows what they're good at, what they're super excited about.
Yeah, it varies for engineers, it varies for designers. Like for designers, it's very obvious, like I'm gonna need to see your work, your portfolio, I need to see how you operate. Engineers, if you're interested in open source, if you speak at conferences, those are really interesting things to me and my team. At the same time, like you don't have to spend all your time doing open source, but it is an opportunity, like show your GitHub account, show that you're doing things. And there are things unrelated to work that I care about, diversity, inclusion. So if I can tell that you care about that, or maybe you don't have a job, but you're working to like build a better environment or build a group around diversity, that's something that I care about and that adds value to your background as well.
I actually have a great example of someone who is shifting their career and moving into engineering after, I think she was something non-engineering, I can't remember exactly. And there was a group that she volunteered for, actually it was an animal shelter, and they needed a new website. And she said, well, I need to build my skills, you need a website, can I build your website? And they said, yeah, and all of a sudden she had a portfolio of something that she could show.
Cool. All right, so before we get to, I want to have everybody shout out a job in a minute, but I want to just leave this with like really one good piece of advice for the job seekers here in the audience. So we can just go down there. What's something that's really good that people should really just keep in mind and remember while they're interviewing?
I mean, I think that it takes practice. Like everyone messes up their first few interviews, and you kind of just keep plugging away at it. Networking, stuff like this always really helps. So.
Thank you for the endorsement.
Be prepared. We're in the digital age. There's a gazillion articles on our company, the people that work there, our culture. Like we have an engineering blog. There's just so much stuff out there, and the more you can just absorb, the more it's going to increase your chances that will consider you.
Persevere. It's interviewing is hard. It's not personal if you don't get selected or if we don't respond. I'm sure you've heard 1,000 times the talent market is hot. That means we're talking to a gazillion people, and so please don't take it personally. Just hang in there. I truly do believe things happen for the right reason, and you end up where you're supposed to be, even if that's job 110 versus job 2. So just hang in there.
I touched on it earlier, but be curious. If you don't ask me questions about the team, the role, like what are you doing? If you think you know everything just by the job description, it's a bit of a flag. Like I'm probably not going to move forward because you're lacking curiosity, and I need that, and the team needs that. So ask questions, do your homework, ask questions. Look up, if you know who you're interviewing with, like look up their background on LinkedIn and say, oh, I saw you're interested in this, and ask them a question about it.
Just really quick, I just want to ask one more that you reminded me of. How many people typically apply for one job? How many people do you interview to fill one position?
Depends on the position. We've got one role that we've been really struggling with that we've met a lot of folks for. But on the flip side, so that's sort of more of a specialty role. On the flip side, sort of just a general software developer, we get tons of inbound, and sorting through that actually takes a lot longer. But maybe we only meet 5 or 6 people because we can pick them out pretty quickly. So it really just depends on the role.
Yeah, I hired a couple people for a few different roles recently where we brought 2 finalists on site to meet with the teams, and we picked one of them for each roles. I've had engineering roles where I've had 1,000 applicants in a month. I'm getting a ton of applicants. So it really just varies. I try to only present like 4 or 5 finalists to a team, but we definitely screen a lot. I'm screening 20, 25 people a week personally.
Yeah, there's a massive range. I feel like there have been roles where we'll do hundreds of phone screens, at one extreme, and then there are other ones where, you might get lucky and talk to 10 people and bring 2 on site, and one of them gets an offer, and you close it in 3 weeks. Like, that's fantastic, but definitely it runs the gamut.
Now on the staffing side, is that the same sort of process? Are you sending a lot of people for one position, or?
I mean, we tend to keep it a little more specialized and not overload the hiring managers. So, I mean, there's a reason why it hasn't been filled yet, and we're trying to dig into that and find a better fit. So we'll talk to a lot of people, probably end up sending about 2, 3 at a time.
All right. Cool. So this is actually my favorite part is I know all you guys have open positions. So I'd love for you guys to shout out a few of the positions that you have open. And again, we have a range of folks here, so feel free to throw out a couple of interesting ones that you think the people here should apply for.
Okay. Well, I'm working with one small startup, and they only need about 2 years experience. They're looking for full stack Node.js. And then there's one other company. They're an AI small startup again, and they're looking for Scala, which is always kind of hard to find.
We've got a bunch. Full stack engineers. I feel like we always need really good folks on our apps team. QA engineer. We've got a number of data science, machine learning types of roles. There's a bunch. Definitely check out our careers page.
So we just opened a lead role for infrastructure and tools, which is going to build out our testing process and go from manual to automated. We've got a data engineer role for someone who's got about 2 years experience with something related to data. We've got a product manager role. That one is, we don't care how long you've been doing it. It's more about the kind of experience you've had as a product manager. We're also looking for a Scrum Master, just to try something different with the group. And then this fall, we'll be opening up more, just sort of more full stack, or really more back-end engineers.
Cool.
Hiring product designers. I'll grow the team from 5 to 11. So, 3-4 years of experience up to 10-15 years of experience, pretty open. Hiring a junior technical writer soon. I'm hiring an events marketing or an event production coordinator soon. Editors, writers, product managers, engineers. I'm hiring a ton of people. I'm growing the product team from 6 to 29 through the end of next year. So, if you're interested, it's griffin@do.co. Email me. I will see your email.
They'll respond.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So a few just quick thank yous. One, we're at Blueprint & Co. today, so they were gracious enough to host us. If you've seen Shark Tank, Damon John just opened this place up, so there's a huge co-working space downstairs, and they gave us this event space for our meetup here tonight. So wanted to thank the folks at Blueprint for opening up the doors to us to here today. So thank you so much.